Hello, everybody. I know I did a video on this on Friday, but we now have confirmation that Sac State is officially headed to the Mid Atlantic Conference. And we must say this before we get into anything else. Dr. Luke Wood got it freaking done, man. He got it done. And you can say what you want. I was pretty vocal about not liking the tactics that they were taking to get there, and not necessarily agreeing with all the messaging, and saying, "Oh, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen," and none of it ever happened. But at this point, it has happened, and Sac State is a part of the MAC, and more importantly, not even about the MAC. We'll get into what that looks like because the travel is going to be absolutely brutal. But Sac State is an FBS institution, and that is what Dr. Lukewood has been saying all along. We want to be an FBS institution, and they are an FBS institution. Now, that's football only. The Big West, I don't know if it doesn't matter for football. It doesn't matter for all the other sports. For football, they are an FBS institution. They are going to be playing at the highest level. Now, the travel is going to be crazy. I think the closest school is like 2,100 miles away. But none of that matters. None of that matters right now. They are an FBS institution, and that is what matters. And yeah, so Pete Thamel, the MAC, has voted to formally add FCS Sacramento State into the league as a football-only member starting in 2026. The cost of entrance is expected to be $18 million, and a deal is expected to be announced in the coming days. Now, we have some other information, because as I've been talking about, NDSU moving up and now Sac State moving up, it clearly shows that not only, the get-in price to the FBS is now, I think $5 million is what you must pay just to move up. And then obviously there's some other fees that you got to pay to the conference and whatever that looks like. So what we know is NDSU paid $17.5 million to move up to the Mountain West Conference. Sac State is now going to be paying $23 million to move up to the FBS. And that's just to get in. That's just, to leave the FCS and get in the FBS, we're paying $23 million. But also, one thing that I think a lot of people need to consider is the fact that, to be an FBS in the institution, you also have to pay, like everything has to be elevated. The spend that you're going to spend has to be up, and man, it's absolutely crazy. In addition to the conference entry fee, the school will pay $5 million in a standard NCAA FBS entrance fee for a total of $23 million. The move will keep the MAC at 13 schools. They'd replace Northern Illinois, which is leaving for the Mountain West in football next year. This marks a significant move for Sacramento State, as it will be the first West Coast football program to make this jump to the highest level of football in well over a generation. It also marks a trend of schools paying money to move up in leagues. SMU paved the way as it chose to forego 9 years of television revenue to join the ACC. Cal and Stanford also accepted reduced money to join the ACC. So this is obviously life-changing for people at Sacramento State. I wonder what some of those players who were at Sacramento State last year feel about this, because obviously I think a lot of them were there and were told that they were going to be an FBS institution, and now they don't necessarily get to see the fruits of those labor, because a lot of those guys have transferred away with Brennan Marion and what's going on there. But more than anything, Sacramento State is in the FBS, so it's very, very exciting. But let's look at the distance that Sacramento State will have to travel for some of these schools. Western Michigan, 2,177 miles away from Sacramento State. Ball State is 2,222 miles away. And I know you guys have probably already seen this online, but that Ball State versus Sac State game is going to be absolutely crazy. I mean, the Ball Sac rivalry, I mean, the jokes write themselves. Miami of Ohio is 2,263 miles away. Toledo, 2,271 miles away. Eastern Michigan, 2,283 miles away. Bowling Green, 2,286 miles away. Central Michigan, 2,292 miles away. Akron, 2,399 miles away. Kent State, 2,401 miles away. Ohio, 2,421 miles away. Buffalo, which is all the way in New York, is 2,574 miles away. And then UMass in Massachusetts is 2,947 miles away. The travel is going to be brutal. Financially, that's going to be crazy. And, the logistics with all of that is going to be crazy. But, I think the biggest thing is, man, like, Dr. Luke Wood should feel very vindicated right now, because, he made a lot of noise and a lot of people A lot of people were on his head about, guarantee, and that was the biggest thing is he was guaranteeing things. He was like, I guarantee we're gonna do this, I guarantee we're gonna do that, I guarantee this. And I think that was people's biggest gripe with this is like, you should aspire for your institution to play at the highest level. You should want your athletes to play at the highest level. If you see this institution as a high-end institution in football and in all sports, you should want the best for your institution. But guaranteeing these things without any, it just didn't make a lot of sense at the time. Now they're there. They're there. So I'd be interested to know what happens because they had about 6 or 7 games on their current schedule. A lot of FCS teams, but it was a pretty, in my opinion, it was a pretty decent schedule at the FCS level. I think they had Fresno State on that schedule as well. But in my opinion, the current schedule that they were building was pretty decent. And if they were able to win a lot of games in that schedule, I think they look pretty attractive for FCS playoff eligibility. Well, now that schedule I think goes away. But what does that do? Do they have to pay some of those schools the money for canceling those games? I mean, we haven't seen any of those game contracts, so we don't know what that looks like, but I'm sure something has to happen with that. I think something will have to happen, obviously, with their non-conference schedule, but in terms of their conference schedule, that is obviously going to be put together by the MAC. And this is something that I talked about the other day when I talked about this situation. The MAC has yet to release its 2026 conference schedule. The league loses Northern Illinois this coming year and added UMass last year to remain at 12 member schools. The conference also has upcoming negotiations with ESPN for its new television deal. So I think this is probably one of the deals that they were something that they were waiting on to happen to see if we'll wait for our schedule release until we know if Sacramento State is going to be accepted. And then also we'll wait to negotiate the final number on our ESPN deal until we know if Sacramento State is going to be joining. And I think a lot of the thoughts online from a lot of people that I was seeing, I don't know if a lot of people necessarily agree with this move for Sac State. The travel also is one thing. And then also, you think about the MAC conference. It's not the strongest conference in terms of the competitiveness in the conference. There's not a lot of high-end schools in that conference. I mean, I just named them all. Western Michigan, I think, was the winner of that conference in 2025, but then Ball State, Miami, Toledo, Eastern Michigan, a lot of Michigan and a lot of Ohio in this conference. You got Buffalo. I mean, it's not a very attractive conference in terms of competitiveness. So if you're hoping to be FBS, if you just want to be playing at the highest level, then okay. But if your hope is we want to be FBS and we also want to make it to the college football playoff, I don't know if the MAC is the most attractive spot. There is a school of thought also from a lot of people that they think Sacramento State's just going to like. I think there's two. Opposing schools of thought with this recent wave of people moving up from the FCS to the FBS. I think there's one side of people that think these schools are moving up to get ahead of the curve. Like these schools want to move up and they want to be at the highest level in case there is a future fracture. You don't want to be at the FCS and get locked out. You don't want to be that school that gets left out, and eventually if things do fracture, if the Power Four, say the Power Four split off and it's just, the FBS schools, the G6 schools, and the FCS. You don't want to be that school that gets left at the FCS. You want to make sure you're at the FBS level when that split happens. But then there's another school of thought of people that think, are these schools just spending this money when eventually they're all going to be playing at the same level when it's all going to happen anyway? If that is what eventually happens and it splits and the upper tier FCS and merge with the lower tier with the I don't want to call them lower tier G6 schools, but just like all the schools who are not P4, if they eventually merge with the upper tier FCS schools, was this all for nothing? I don't know. We don't have the answers to that right now, but I think in time we will eventually get answers to all of these questions. But I think the main point still stands. This is very exciting for Sacramento State. This is very exciting for Dr. Luke Wood. I don't want to say Dr. Luke Wood should take like a victory lap, but he should be very proud about what he was able to accomplish. The price is very high. You're spending a lot of money, and you're going to have to continue to spend money. And I would love to know, because last year a conversation at Sacramento State was also about the commitments, the NIL commitments that they had. I think the number was around 50 million that they had in NIL commitments, but I think those NIL commitments were contingent on them getting and becoming an FBS institution. I know at the time when they spoke about those NIL commitments, also I think the Pac-12 was kind of the conversation around. I think they were looking at the Pac-12 and potentially the Mountain West. Now it's the MAC. Are those NIL commitments still in place? Like, are you going to be able to recruit high level talent at Sacramento State? Being in the MAC conference, I don't know. We don't know. We don't have those answers right now. But I think it's important to look at what have we learned from all of this recent movement. Now, will there be more movement in this offseason? I haven't heard or seen anything. Obviously, I'm not one of those reporters who's like talking to these ADs every day and who's in those meeting rooms and all that stuff. But I think one thing is clear: moving up to the FBS is expensive. It's absolutely expensive, and not only is it expensive to move up, to the entry fee to get into FBS, but it's also expensive to maintain those funds. And I think that's something that escapes a lot of people when they talk about this situation. They just talk about, oh, why can't we just raise the money and move up? Well, it's not that simple. You can't just raise the money. Yes, you need the money to move up, but you also need the money to stay there, because you want to stay competitive. You're going to have to, your roster is going to get more expensive. The athletic, things at that level are going to be more expensive also, just in terms of, how am I trying to say this? Like maintaining competitiveness at that level is more expensive. The budget gets more expensive. Everything gets more expensive at that level. So that is something that definitely must be considered. Man, the MAC, tough. If it wasn't going to be the Mountain West Conference, they should have just stayed put. I don't know. You got to think about this from Dr. Luke Wood's point of view. I think there were some. I think they did prefer certain conferences. I think the Mountain West and the Pac-12 were the preferred destinations, and I said that the other day when I talked about this. I think the Mountain West and the Pac-12 were the deserved conferences. They were desperate to move up. MAC was the only conference to listen. I think desperate is to use about that. And I don't think that they're shying away from that either. I don't think they're shying away from the fact that they were a little desperate to be FBS. And desperate sounds kind of bad. I think desperate has a negative connotation on it. But the Mountain West and the Pac-12 were for sure Sac State's number one destination choices. If they had any pick of the litter, they would have picked the Pac-12 and the Mountain West Conference. I think at this point, they are, I don't want to say desperate, but definitely they are just a little bit, whatever we can get, we will take it. We want to be in we want to be in the FBS, and we want to be playing at the highest level. So, I think you got to take it for what it is. I think also you got to think about with Brennan Marion being there last year, and obviously there was a ton of noise, and he moved on to a better destination. He's going to be a phenomenal offensive coordinator. I cannot wait to see what they do at Colorado. I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. They can recruit better. He took a little bit of the pieces with him there, but I think it's going to be good at Colorado. But let's talk about Sacramento State. What does that look like for all of those recruits that were promised that in 2025? I wonder how they feel. I would love to sit down with some of those recruits, because that was one of the crazy things for me at Sacramento State in 2025 was all of the players that they were able to get to come to Sacramento State. Not to say that Sacramento State is an attractive location. I think with what Brandon Marion was doing, I think it was very attractive at the time, but I think they were getting some high-end recruits, man. Obviously, some five-star drop-downs and things like that didn't necessarily pan out, but I think they were getting some really, really good players, and I think it made it look very attractive. So my question always throughout last year was, what was the conversation being had with those recruits? Like, what were they being told? What money were they being paid? I would love to know what – and that's the thing about NIL, which is why I would love for some of these numbers to be public information, is because I just want to know, like, what are some of these guys getting paid, man? Like, because – I just don't know. And I'm not trying to sound like a Sac State hater. I might have sounded like a Sac State hater over the last couple of years. I just didn't necessarily love the way they always went about it. I didn't just that tactics that they took in order to get their messaging out there. I think they could have been more tongue in cheek with some of the way they talked about it. I think they could have been just keep it closer to the vest, don't. And I'm a firm believer of this. I don't like talking about things until I know, the ink is dry. I don't like talking about things until I know it's confirmed, because that's just how I feel. That's just how I am. And in my opinion, that's how I feel like Sac State should have been. Keep it close to the vest. You can maybe mention, yeah, we're in discussions, or yeah, we've been talking to some people, but don't say, I guarantee we will be FBS by December, or by November we will have a conference. And, who knows how long these conversations with the MAC conference has been going. But this is very, very exciting. NDSU moving up, Sacramento State moving up. Sacramento State gets their wish, which is ultimately being an FBS institution. Now, there was a lot of eyes on them in 2025 in the Big Sky Conference, because we knew they were going to be leaving the Big Sky, and hopefully their hope was to be where they are now in the FBS. Now there's going to be a lot of eyes on them in the how competitive are they going to be in the MAC? They lost a decent amount of talent through the portal. Some of them followed Brennan Marion to Colorado. How competitive are they going to be in the MAC? Western Michigan, I just mentioned, was the champion of that conference. Honestly, I'm glad Marion is gone, and Coach Carter, we trust. I don't really get that. I think everybody kind of got their wish. I think Brennan Marion, he got the experience of being a head coach, but also, for me with Brandon Marion, it's about that offense. Not saying he's strictly an offensive coordinator. Who knows if he can or can't be a good head coach, but it's about that. Like that offense is sick, man. I like the go-go offense. I like what they do. And his core tenet with that go-go offense is, it doesn't matter the talent in the offense. It doesn't matter what talent we have on the team. He feels like his scheme is going to be successful no matter what talent you have. And I think, if you look at the numbers, that offense was extremely successful. They started off rocky at the beginning of the season, but I think once everybody started to understand and the play scan the scheme more and they started to understand, I think early on, especially with Jaden Rashada being there, I never thought that offense was going to work with Jaden Rashada. I never thought that they were going to be what the go-go offense truly was with Jaden Rashada, because in my opinion, he is a pocket passer. He is not the running quarterback that you need in that like you need somebody who's willing to run the ball. You need somebody who can also pass, but you need somebody who is willing to run the ball and threaten that defense, as well as capable running backs on each side of him. And I didn't think Jaden Rashada provided that. When they put Cardell Williams in, you saw what that offense looked like. Sack could be competitive in the MAC in a couple of years. So we'll have to see about that. The recruiting, what Coach Lonzo Carter is going to be able to do. He's been around the block. He's an experienced coach. So we'll see what he's going to do as a head coach. And we'll see what the recruiting looks like. Also, that's going to be interesting too, is like, how do you man, those plane trips are going to be brutal, man. I remember when in 2021 we went to play James Madison. Obviously, you guys know I played at Montana, and that plane ride was brutal. Just think about, Sac State is going to be doing trips like that every other week. Like, they're going to be getting on plane rides like that every other week. That is going to be absolutely brutal, man. That's going to be brutal. Like, I would hate that. And then what is the cost? Obviously, they've probably mapped out all of this, what the cost looks like and what that means for their budget and all of that. So I'm sure they've mapped out they've been talking about this for the last 2 years. So I'm sure all the finances and everything is mapped out and they have a good idea of what it's going to look like. But at the end of the day, it's exciting. I think everybody should pop a bottle of champagne for Dr. Luke Wood, because a lot of people were on his head. A lot of people were on him about the way he was going about it. But at the end of the day, he was right. He got what he wanted, and they are an FBS institution. So let me read this last comment. This move feels more like them getting a foot in the door, and eventually they'll try to get into the pack. Yeah, that is a good point also. That is a really, really good point also. Like, I think eventually, exactly what you said is, I couldn't even explain it any better. Like, this is a foot in the door. This is like, hey, let's get there. Let's establish ourselves here. So, hey, at the end of the day, they tried to keep us out in 2025. They denied our waiver. They did everything they could to keep us out. But right now, we are an FBS institution. Right now, we are in the MAC conference. We can talk about movement and what movement within the FBS looks like, but let's get to the FBS first. They were willing to play an FBS independent schedule. They were willing to do whatever. And that is the biggest point, is they were willing to do whatever. But at this point, we are there, so they can't keep us out. Somebody told us yes. And that's the biggest thing, is all we need is one yes. We just need one yes from somebody to say, yes, you could be in the FBS. They got that yes. So what does it look like moving forward? We will see. But it's very exciting. Congrats to Dr. Luke Wood. Congrats to Sacramento State University. California State. They're like they're part of the Cal State system, whatever. But congratulations to everybody out there in Sacramento. A top 20 media market. So it's exciting for them. Let me see this. What's your take on these teams leaving? As a Montana fan, I'd love to see the jump to the Mountain West Conference, but not if it means ripping the soul out of the program or losing the Bobcats rivalry. And what if we end up getting left behind with a Husk of football tier? I don't know if you said what you wanted to say at that last point, but what's your take on teams leaving? My take on teams leaving is, I think it's a really good time to be Montana and Montana State. After having conversations with people and talking about the Montana and Montana State setup, I don't think there's a world where Montana or Montana State moves up without the other. First off, you would have riots on each side of the state. That cannot happen. I don't know why they're not putting up a riot in South Dakota State. I mean, I don't know. They're not in the same state, for one. They're cross-state. They're cross-state rivalries. It's the North Dakota rivalry versus the South Dakota. Obviously, it's North Dakota State and South Dakota State. But I think it's a little different with North Dakota State and South Dakota State. I think in the state of Montana, I think Montana and Montana State are in lockstep with each other. So whether one school is ready to move up or whether the other school is ready to move up, I think they both are going to go at the same time. I'd love to see the jump to the Mountain West, but not. So my thing about Montana State moving up in terms of where the like, I think the FCS is in a really good place. Like I think definitely it is weaker losing North Dakota State. It's impossible to say that the FCS is not weaker without losing North Dakota State. But I also feel like it was time for North Dakota State to go. Like, not that, anybody is necessarily scared of North Dakota State. Obviously, they're a formidable opponent. And obviously, they were that daunting task. Whenever you had a good squad, you knew eventually, whether it be in the national championship game, the semifinals, the quarterfinals, or wherever it is, you are going to have to see them. You're going to have to see them, and you're going to have to beat Goliath. I think NDSU leaves the parity of the FCS in a very, very good place. I think it's very exciting for Montana. I think it should be very exciting for a Tarleton. I think it should be very exciting for a Youngstown State, a South Dakota State. I think it should be like all of the top 10, top 15, top 25 teams in the FCS. I think it's very exciting for all of them because at this point, like not necessarily it's wide open because Montana State is still, in my opinion, a very heavy favorite to repeat in 2026. But I think everybody should be excited at the FCS. I think everybody should be ready for the coming years. I mean, and who knows how long it's going to be this, because I think now the conversation shifts to a North Dakota, a South Dakota State, a South Dakota, a Montana State, a Tarleton. Like, I think the conversation now is shifted to, okay, when are those teams going to move up? I think I think those teams should want to move up for that one scenario of if there is a fracturing. You don't want to be the team that gets left behind. So I think there should be urgency to an extent for those teams to move up, but also I think there should be enjoyment of the time that we're in right now. Like, it's an exciting time to be a top tier FCS school because the Goliath of North Dakota State is no longer there. You should be excited for the potential of your team to win a national championship. You should be excited for the potential of your team to make a deep playoff run. You should be excited about all of those prospects. I think it's an exciting time in football. I'm very excited for North Dakota State. I think they're going to be very tough to beat in the Mountain West Conference. I think they could potentially be they could potentially make a college football playoff run in 2026. We'll see what it looks like. I know they're petitioning to be eligible in 2026 for the college football playoff in the Mountain West Conference title. I think that rule is definitely outdated. We saw what James Madison did. We saw what some of the other teams who have moved up have done. Jacksonville State was just conference champion in the Conference USA last year with a former FCS quarterback from Furman. I can't even remember his name. I think it's Tyler Huff. But I mean, you should be excited if you're an FCS school. You should be excited about what's coming. You should be excited at all levels. Sac State should be excited. Congratulations to them. North Dakota State should be excited. Congratulations to them. But also, Montana State should be extremely excited because, hey, this is now the time. And I know there's a world where people say, and I'm talking to you, Schmidt. Schmidt is the main one I see saying this, but he says there's going to be an asterisk. And if you guys don't know Andrew Schmidt, go check him out on Talking Schmidt with Skyline Sports on the Big Sky Breakdown. He does a phenomenal job. He's very opinionated, but it is must-see TV all the time. So go check that out. But what I'll say about what Schmidt always says is there's going to be an asterisk next to any national championship that's won at the FCS level. I just disagree with that. I absolutely disagree with that. I don't agree with the fact that there's going to be an asterisk. I think a national championship is a national championship. And if you get the chance to win a national championship, you take that chance no matter what it looks like. I mean, you're not going to look 50 years down the road. I mean, do we look at all these NDSU titles and say, well, they didn't have to play App State. Well, they didn't have to play Georgia Southern. Well, they didn't have to play whoever the hell it is. Like, no. And it shouldn't be that way. If you win a national championship, you should feel vindicated that we got to the top of the mountain, no matter. And that's the thing as a football player, the way I look at it as a football player is like, I don't care who the team is. I don't care who's the team. That is the next team on our schedule, and that's who we are going to beat. At NDSU, those fans are looking at it like, man, I'm great. I'm so happy we won 10 national championships, but we didn't have to face App State, so there's an asterisk next to our 10 national championships. Absolutely not. The same with Montana State. Montana State is not looking, because let's be real. When Montana State played North Dakota State in 2024, they lost. When they didn't have to play North Dakota State in 2025, they won it all. I don't feel any way about that. I feel very happy to an extent that the fact that, like, they won it, man. Who cares what they did to win it? They won it. Like, that should be the point that we're sticking on, not the point that they didn't have to face this team or they didn't have to face that team or they didn't have to do this, they didn't have to do that. Like, who cares? I don't care. You guys shouldn't care. So that's my point about it. WAC technically still exists. Agreed. Nobody cares when they win a natty. Most schools would be stoked to win a championship. Absolutely. Absolutely. Who the hell cares who you beat to win a national champ? Like, man, and not that Schmidt doesn't understand how hard it is to win a national championship, because he absolutely understands what it takes for a team to get to the top of the mountain. So I'm not saying, but like, I don't know. It just seems kind of that asterisk point to me just seems a little like a cop out to me. It seems like a cop out. Like, it seems like you're making excuses for people winning national championships. Like, it just seems kind of soft to me. It just seems a little soft to me. Like, I don't think any team winning a national championship should ever feel a type of way about how they got that national championship. Never apologize for winning, because one thing that I love about what Coach Houck always said, and I'm sure he's going to say this at Illinois, is winning is hard, losing is easy. Just go ask those guys who we just beat. It's hard, man. No matter what you think, winning is hard, man. Putting together a winning team is hard. Putting together a winning script is hard. Putting together a game plan, like, winning is hard, man. If winning was easy, everybody would do it. I know you guys have heard that. If it was easy, would do it. Well, everybody doesn't do it. Everybody doesn't win national championships. Everybody is not a contender, and everybody is not going to be a contender just because North Dakota State is gone. There are still going to be a bunch of disappointments in the FCS, although NDSU is gone. But there is still going to be a ton of good competition at the FCS level with North Dakota State gone. And I just think it gets way more exciting now with North Dakota State gone, because it got a little boring. You'd be a fool to not admit to the fact that it was a little boring every year watching North Dakota State win and win and win. Mr. Gale, hello, how are you doing? It got boring, man. It got boring. It got boring watching the same story every year. Okay, we're gonna get there, and it's gonna be North Dakota State versus somebody, or it's gonna be North Dakota State versus South Dakota State, or it's gonna be North Dakota State was going to be in the conversation. I think now we get to move into a world where there's new storylines. We get to talk about new things. It gets more fun. It is more fun for everybody involved at the FCS level. Is it a little bit weaker as a subdivision? Absolutely. Without your best team, without a team that's won 10 national championships in the last 15 years, it is a weaker subdivision. Absolutely. But does that weaken the merit of winning a national championship? Absolutely not. That is a great point, Stingers Up. Carson Conklin, I'm going back. I'm getting off that whatever the point I was just on. I'm getting off that, and I'm going back to Sacramento State. Carson Conklin, I don't know why. Well, actually, I do know why, and that's why I was confused as to why. That's why I was confused as to why Sacramento State grabbed Jaden Rashada, because I didn't think he fit that offense. And from Carson Conklin's standpoint, I did not think he would have fit in that go-go offense. But he is a phenomenal player. He has a phenomenal arm. I think he was a Jerry Rice Award finalist, or he was a semifinalist. He was up there. He had a phenomenal season in 2024. I think he's a phenomenal player. I was sad to see him leave the Big Sky. I understand why he left, because if you look at what Brandon Marion's done and the type of quarterbacks that win in that system, it doesn't necessarily fit what Carson Conklin does. But him coming back, phenomenal ad for Alonzo Carter. I think that's a phenomenal player. He had a little sabbatical in Fresno. I think he got a red shirt that year too, because I think he was a true freshman. I think he was actually a red shirt in 24. Either way, it's exciting for Carson Conklin to be back at Sacramento. I think that's a very exciting ad. Yes. Now MSU's chances for a dynasty, fingers crossed. It does open the door for some Cinderella stories. Ill State was an amazing headline. Exactly, man. Like, do you guys not understand that the viewership in the FCS playoffs this year was absolutely phenomenal? Do you guys not realize? Did you guys see that did you guys actually watch the national championship game? It was freaking must-see TV. It was amazing. And there was people who would have never watched FCS football, got to learn who Taco Dowler is, got to learn who Dylan, I can't even remember the receiver's name, but got to learn who all these guys, Tommy Rittenhouse, got to learn who Justin Lamson is, got to learn. It was amazing to watch. And not that there weren't good stories in North Dakota State, but it was a boring story. It was the same story. North Dakota State's going to run power down your throat. They're going to play really good defense. They're going to stop the run, and they're going to be very hard to beat. They're well coached. It was a boring story. With Montana State and Illinois State making their Cinderella run, like, we get more of those. And maybe Illinois State ended up being a Cinderella story because they bumped their head a couple times during the season. But Illinois State was a phenomenal football team. They had phenomenal players. They had phenomenal talent. They are well coached. They have a great strength conditioning program. Like, they are a good program. The only reason they ended up being a Cinderella story is because they got beat by 30 to finish the regular season. But Illinois State was always a good football team throughout the season. They were always somebody who you had to. I mean, even when they played North Dakota State in the first time, and I think actually when they played South Dakota State as well, like, they played North Dakota State pretty close. I think they only lost by like 17 the
first time they played them. Like, I don't think it was necessarily a blowout, how you think of blowouts. Like, I think they played them pretty tough. So in my mind, but yes, they were a Cinderella story, and we get way more of those now. Like, we get to watch and we get to see people progress through the playoffs, and it's just much better storylines. You get to learn more about some of these smaller schools who may end up making it. It's just exciting for everybody. It's just exciting for everybody. In all honesty, NDSU makes us all better teams. Cheers to them. I would agree with that. NDSU, like, that's the thing too that sucks about NDSU losing, and I guess that's the reason why the level is I guess why you could say it drops the FCS down to a lower level, because when you have that NDSU at the top, when you have that Goliath at the top, it makes you like it gives you something to chase. Like, this is the gold standard. If we are not at this standard, we're not there. And that really was where the conversation was at. You watch NDSU, you watch some of the other teams. If you don't look even a fraction close, if you don't look kind of close to what NDSU looks like, if you're not dominating to the level of NDSU, you are not going to be able to win a national championship. And that's why it was so phenomenal what Brent Vigen has been able to build at Montana State, is because you see the dominance week in and week out. And you see consistently they are dominating teams in the trenches. They're dominating teams on the scoreboard. And that's why when they had those close games against a Mercyhurst, or they had that close game against Yale in the playoffs, it's like, are they there yet? I don't know. And we obviously never got to see them play North Dakota State, but that is definitely a fact. Like, North Dakota State made everybody better, because if you're not at that level, you're just quite frankly not there yet. And that's where the conversation was at. And losing that is going to hurt a little bit. And that's what I've said this whole time. Losing that is going to hurt a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think the FCS is in a phenomenal place, man. I think FCS is in a phenomenal place. So I appreciate you guys in the chat sending me some things, some more conversation points to talk about. The main point about this, why I got on this live, was because Sacramento State is an FBS institution. So crack a bottle of champagne open for Dr. Luke Wood. They hated on him. They said it wouldn't happen. They doubted him. But at the end of the day, he got it done, and he made his institution an FBS football program. So not necessarily an FBS institution, but an FBS football program. So it's exciting for them. It's exciting for Sacramento State. It's exciting for all of their fans, and they should be happy about that. Appreciate you guys tapping in. I got Colter Nuanez coming on Kim's Analysis tomorrow. We're talking about the new defensive coordinator hires at Montana and Montana State. He's got some really good thoughts about that. And we had some other conversations. Colter Nuanez is obviously very, very knowledgeable about FCS football, about Big Sky football. So make sure you guys tune in for that. It's a really, really good conversation. Cannot wait. And then if you guys have not tapped into Deep Ball with me and Keenan Curran, make sure you guys go tap into that. I know you guys loved me having Keenan on a Kim's Analysis this season, so we decided to make our own channel. We do have a podcast feed. You guys can search Deep Ball anywhere you get your podcast. You'll find it. But go subscribe to that channel as well, and go listen to the conversation me and Keenan had, because we had some really, really good conversation points as well. Yes, Gail, I said that a minute ago. That's going to be a phenomenal rivalry. But I appreciate you guys tapping in. I will catch you guys another time, and I will see you guys later. Hope you guys have a phenomenal President's Day tomorrow, and I hope you guys had a good Valentine's Day. See you guys later.